So I think we're all familiar with the squat, the bench, the deadlift. I think even some of us are going to be very familiar with the golden six. I think some of our viewers will even be keenly familiar with the latest cable lateral raise, twisting, kneeling, extension, whatever new exercise has been made up on Instagram this week. But what I want to talk about today is 7 underrated accessory exercises that will absolutely carry over to your strength, your performance, and your physique. One of the first lifts we're going to open with is the seal row. The seal row is really good because it eliminates kind of any cheating and really just lets you feel how much your upper back can contribute on its own. Now the barbell row is a wonderful lift, but a kind of advantage I suppose the seal row has got over it is that there is a kind of classic story with the barbell row, and that is, someone starts out and it is very strict. They're bent over maybe 45 degrees, maybe even 90 degrees, and they're pulling it, touching every single time, and that gets too easy, so they put the weight up. And when they put the weight up, maybe there's just like a little tiny fraction of a bounce with that rep. And then they go, well, this is quite easy, I can still do this, I feel like my back is stimulated enough, I feel strong. They go up again, and that kind of little bit of bounce, that little bit of momentum just kind of increases. And to be fair, cheat rows absolutely have their place, but a lot of times I have seen people start out with like a relatively strict barbell row and then just kind of work their way up, and they start to get to a point that they are kind of exclusively doing cheat rows now, which again do have their benefit, but I think it's very easy to kind of miss the mid-back when you do this, because a lot of times that hardest part is that kind of last little section, that little squeeze in the shoulder blades, and with this I think it really just exposes that and really helps develop the mid-back. The reason that I highlight this as a major benefit is because I think there's lots of people out there that have got absolutely huge lats but have slightly kyphotic posture. Basically they're slightly kind of bent over, their kind of scapula is slightly drifted, and it's because that last little range of motion, that kind of muscle, the mid-traps, is just a little bit neglected. So this is one that can absolutely guarantee to kind of bring that up. Now, not many gyms actually have a seal row set up. I know mine doesn't. So what I would suggest as probably the closest alternative is just doing a chest-supported dumbbell row. I think it achieves everything that the seal row sets out to do. It takes the lower back out of the equation, so you don't have to think about it. It eliminates any kind of momentum, and you can really just have a good way of thinking as you're lying on that bench. You can maybe think, I pull my elbows up to about here, and I know when my elbows are just a little bit behind me, that's the point that I pull to, and I try and hit that every time. If I can't hit that point, then I don't progress. If I can hit all my reps like that, then it just gives me a little bit of rep progression. The next exercise I'm going to talk about is the dumbbell pullover. This is really good. You can just set up across a bench with a dumbbell, slight dip at the hips, and just kind of expand the arms over the bench. This is really good because it does help isolate the lats, and that isn't like a very common function actually. A lot of the times when we're doing our back exercises, the first thing to fail is your forearms, or even if you're strapped up, your biceps. When you do any kind of pullover movement, be that dumbbell or machine, you directly isolate the lats, which is really important because it kind of allows you to actually take the lats to failure rather than taking those kind of secondary and tertiary muscles. Another bonus of the pullover is, I think, potentially range of motion. I think if you're not very mobile and you struggle to get your arms up above your head, which I know many trainees do, what you're training here is thoracic extension, which is actually really good for your mobility and ability to perform on other exercises. If you don't really like getting your hands above your head, if you find when you do like shoulder presses that it's just a little bit uncomfortable and you find yourself kind of like not able to really extend up and over, when you kind of isolate that function of just extending at the upper back, you're going to have a lot easier time when it comes to your kind of overhead pressing type movements. This also comes with the bonus of injury prevention. Now, again, if you did have some sort of mobility restriction, I would advise easing into it before just absolutely, going ham on your pullovers. You might just pull a little bit too far. Good mornings Good mornings have almost become a kind of dirty word. A lot of people have associated it with, oh, that's such a good morning squat, oh, you should never squat like that. So they kind of inherently think that good mornings themselves are dangerous. But the great thing with good mornings is they essentially mimic the motor pattern of an RDL, but allow you to use about 40% of the working weight while achieving pretty much similar results. So not only is it a great developer, but also it has a lot of practical carryover. We spoke about that dirty word at the start there, the good morning squat. But say you're someone that you squat really upright all the time, your form looks like a Chinese weightlifter, and you end up, for whatever reason, rising up at the hole, hips first. If you've not put in any work to your kind of posterior chain, you're probably going to get injured from that. But if you've developed your posterior chain, you can probably drive the hips through, put the chest up, and rack it. And what better way to prepare for that than hinge forward, bar on your back, having to drive your hips through? I think it absolutely kind of meets the movement pattern criteria, and if you get really good at it, it could probably save you a lot of pain. Farmer's walks, I don't think there's anything that this lift doesn't do. You've got a great developer there in your grip strength, your traps, your upper back, your midsection. There's great kind of athletic carryover too. And I think just practical carryover to real life. Anyone that I've introduced these to have grown like a weed. Not only have they got like a lot bigger, but I think that grip strength carryover as well just makes them a lot stronger on pretty much every single lift. I think as well it's really good for your posture. If you're someone that's sedentary, you sit down a lot, and maybe you kind of curve over, just having a lift that is weighted and you have to basically assume your best posture under load, I think that's going to fix a lot for not a lot of kind of mental cost. I think they're one of these exercises that if you get good at them, you will absolutely look like you lift. They're that kind of exercise that's going to make you look big in a hoodie. I regrettably stopped doing them for a while, and even talking about them, I actually think I'm going to put them back in because they are just that good. The push press, and I think this takes us to what I spoke about when I was talking about the upper back. There's definitely exercises and times and contexts where cheating has its place, and I think the push press is very underrated. I think a lot of the times we focus a lot on our dumbbell lateral raises, our strict presses, our machine presses, and these are all great exercises too. But I don't think the push press gets a lot of love. I think a lot of people think that it's more in the realms of athletics or something that isn't worth the stimulus to fatigue ratio. But whenever I've kind of given this to someone or seen someone use it in their routine, when they've only been doing strict presses or they've really been focusing on like cable lateral raises and stuff like that, when they take on a push press, not only does their strict press get bigger, but so do their shoulders and their traps and a little bit their upper back too. I think a lot of people are very quick to dismiss it because of the kind of recent uptick in, I don't want to be strong, I just want to look strong. It's all about the tempo, the time under tension, the eccentric. So they disregard the lift, but even actually if you think about it in the kind of scientific context, with this lift, you're cheating the concentric and then kind of have a bit more control on the eccentric. So having that kind of overload on the eccentric, that heavy weight that you couldn't normally strict press, should surely even fit the context that if you're someone that really cares about eccentrics and time under tension and stuff like that, that you too could implement. It's another one of those lifts that for whatever reason I cut it out of my programme, and I absolutely regret it. I think if I had continued on getting good at this, it would have really helped me a lot, and it is something that I'm going to be taking back into. The next lift is going to come out left field because I think it's talking about the exact opposite of the points that I've been making so far, and it is the face pull. Controversial, but guys, I think Jeff Cavalier might have been right about this one. Obviously, it's great for your scapular health, that's something that I've kind of made across all the points here. I think if you can fix your posture, you can give yourself a much better physique. Anecdotally, any time that I've given this to a client, it can be, a 37-year-old mother, it could be a guy that is 40% body fat and obese. I find if they do this exercise for like 6 weeks, their delts and their kind of mid traps just absolutely pop. Even at higher body fat percentages and kind of limited training experience, those muscles become very developed very quickly. And I think if that's something that you're missing off your physique, it could just take you to a whole new level. But not just that, I think it really develops a lot of the muscles at the upper back that maybe often get missed through bigger compound lifts, such as, you know, rowing or overhead pressing. The next one I'm going to talk about is decline sit-ups. I am someone that absolutely fell for the squats and deadlifts work your core enough. You don't need to do any direct ab isolation. And I just don't think that's really true. I mean, it's not true for any other muscle in your body, so why would it be true for your core? Of course, there are guys out there that have never done a single sit-up, but because they are absolutely so strong, they do have developed cores. You can think of many strongmen. But if we're talking about Gen Pop, usually a guy with a developed core has directly trained his core. Now, I think things like leg raises and, you know, cable crunches do get enough love. So this is where I'm bringing in the weighted decline sit-up. And there is a specific way that I would want you to perform it. A lot of people want to get a big 20 plate, sit it on their chest, and just kind of do this, you know. But what I actually would rather see you do, and this is going to be a hell of a lot harder, and this is the movement that is underrated and actually very valuable. I want you to get like a really small weight because it can humble you quite quickly. You know, get like a 2 kilo kettlebell, a 5 kilo kettlebell. Sit back in that decline sit-up bench. Get your arms above your head like so. Clasp it behind you. Kind of stretch out, really open up the chest with that kind of weight behind your head. And lean right back, kind of to about parallel, and crunch up with a hard exhale. You will find that really catches up with you. Something about that kind of opened up, hands behind the head position, stretched out, just makes it so much harder. It's got a great capacity for progressive overload. You know, you don't have to use very heavy weights, and you can just progress up quite quickly as you get better at it. Unfortunately, the gym that I'm in just now doesn't have one, and it's one of the things that I regularly find myself missing. I don't think it's necessarily superior than any other kind of ab exercises. I don't think a lot of these exercises are superior than, you know, the original version that they're based on, or kind of any alternative versions. But I just think these ones maybe don't get talked about. And what I'm going to give you is a special bonus exercise because you stayed this long, because you subscribed, and because you liked. And that is your neck curls. I think you absolutely need to do direct neck work. I've not been doing it very long. I have literally done it for about 2 weeks. But something that I've noticed is that if you've got kind of small neck, small forearms, small calves, those are some of the first things that people see about you. Those are some of the things that are going to kind of stick out your clothes no matter what. So why not develop those? Because they're kind of your physique first impression. If you can make a good one, it's going to make the rest of your physique look a lot more jacked. They're probably one of the most important indicators of how muscular someone actually is. So let me know if you've tried any of these lifts. Do you agree with the list? Do you disagree with the list? Is there anything that you think I missed here? And if you liked the video, please like the video, subscribe and click the bell notification so you can stay up to date with the latest ones. Let me know if you're going to try them out. Please do. You know, if there's something in there that spoke to you, put it in your program for 6 months, get back to me, let me know how it went.